public comment. Is there anybody who wishes to speak during this period? We don't have anybody signed up. Alrighty, hearing and seeing none. Council, moving into the approval of the minutes. Any corrections, additions, or deletions to the minutes presented? Okay, hearing none, is there a motion to approve the minutes as presented?
I'll make a motion.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the minutes. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, motion and a second to approve the minutes. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the minutes say aye. Aye. Those opposed? The minutes are approved. And moving into updates from council, if there are any. Any updates? I see Chief Terry in the back. I just want to give the police department a shout out. I was at Safe Light today. Had a lot of great things to say about the Fletcher Police Department. In addition to that, they mentioned a particular incident today where a Fletcher officer took somebody that was struggling to Transylvania County because they were full of Safe Light in Henderson County. So way to go to wherever that officer is, going above and beyond. So we thank y'all. Any other updates from council? All right, moving into the consent agenda. Any questions, comments, concerns related to any item there? All right, hearing none, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
Make a motion.
There a motion to approve the consent agenda. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the consent agenda say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, motion carries and the consent agenda is approved. Moving into discussion item number 5, the public hearing on the zoning text amendment related to data centers. We have Mr. Tyler Marlowe, Planning and Zoning Director here. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council.
Is it on? Oh, okay.
So it's coming.
Good. I didn't see it on the projector inside.
It's going bad. Matthew's working on the place that it may work and it won't.
There you go. I'll share it with you, man.
Diving into this. So this is a staff-initiated text amendment to the Land Development Code to define data centers as a use and then establish how those will be regulated within the town. Town Council directed staff to define data centers and prohibit them in all zoning districts consistent with how we currently regulate cryptocurrency mining. The proposed amendment adds data centers to the use table and then prohibits that use and establishes a clear definition for that use. So what are data centers? Data centers are facilities that support the internet infrastructure through large-scale data storage and processing. The industry is rapidly expanding and including into smaller and rural communities. Developers typically look for locations with reliable power, fiber connectivity, cooler climates. While these facilities often resemble commercial or industrial buildings, they do operate much differently. They can have significant impacts, including high electricity demand, substantial water use for cooling the computers, and also continuous noise from mechanical systems. A medium-sized facility can generate a large amount of heat that requires constant cooling, increasing both energy and water consumption for those facilities. Demand for these facilities continue to grow due to its increase of cloud computing, streaming services, artificial intelligence, and also connected devices. Data centers operate 24 hours a day and typically require enhanced security measures such as fencing, lighting, and controlled access. So if they were permitted, data centers would most likely be located in our M1 manufacturing district due to the size and requirements for buildings. These areas are limited within the town and are shown on the map that is referenced on the screen. However, the proposed ordinance clearly states that the data centers are not permitted in any zoning district and provides clarity to developers, so there's no ambiguous language in our ordinance about this. So the proposed text amendment formally defines data centers, as I've mentioned previously. and then it also establishes it as a use. The planning board's land use plan consistency statement is shown on the screen. It finds the amendment to be consistent with the town of Fletcher's land use plan. The amendment is intended to protect the quality of life of residents, workers, and visitors by preserving or by preventing a use that can have significant environmental and operational impacts. The scale and intensity of data centers differs substantially from existing development patterns in Fletcher and are not aligned with the town's long-term land use goals. The Fletcher Planning Board reviewed this text amendment at their April meeting. Following a brief discussion, the board voted unanimously to recommend approval of this text amendment. This slide shows the planning board's land use plan consistency statement that could be adopted by town council if you approve this text amendment. Same here. This is the planning board's reasonableness statement that they made during their motion. I also have a draft reasonableness statement if denial is the direction of council. And then also I'm happy to answer any questions y'all may have.
What questions do we have, or comments? No questions or comments, sir?
Thank you for your work on that.
Yes, Tom.
That's a lot of work on that, and thank you for planning board for doing that.
All right, we just need to have a public hearing. So is there a motion to enter public hearing related to the data center amendment?
Make the motion.
Okay, is there a motion to enter public hearing? Is there a second?
Second.
A motion and a second, any discussion? Here none, all those in favor of entering public hearing, say aye. Those opposed? We are in the public hearing. We don't have anybody signed up to speak during the data center public hearing, but is there anybody that wishes to speak? Okay, hearing and seeing none, is there a motion to close the public hearing?
Make a
Make
motion.
Okay, Amber got the motion, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, motion and a second to close the public hearing. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of closing public hearing, say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Okay, we are outside of public hearing. Now we just need a motion for approval or denial, council. And we have that suggested language in front of you for whoever wants to read that. Sorry.
I move the town council adopt an ordinance amending the official Town of Fletcher Land Development Code, amending Article 2, district provisions, and Article 18, definitions to establish data centers as a defined use and prohibit it in all zoning districts based upon the following. Number one, the petition is found to be consistent with the land use plan based on the information from staff analysis and public hearing, and because the amendment is intended to protect the quality of life and well-being of residents, workers, and visitors by preventing the use that it can have significant environmental and operational impacts. The scale of this intensity of this use differs substantially from other use currently present in Fletcher, making it incompatible with the community's existing development pattern and long-term land and use goals. Number two, we find the petition to be reasonable and in public interest based on the information of staff analysis and public hearing, and because the proposed text amendment removes a use that is incompatible with the town's long-term goals and vision. The proposed text amendment helps safeguard valuable environmental resources while supporting Fletcher's identity as a outdoor recreational hub. The proposed text amendment protects the quality of life for Fletcher residents and visitors.
Okay, we have a motion for approval. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, a motion and a second for approval. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of approval, say aye. Aye. Those opposed? All right, it has passed. And Tyler, thank you for your work there. Glad we were able to do this. All right, moving into item number 6, the public hearing for the standard rezoning and special use permit review related to Berkshire Trace. Let's see here. We now open the evidentiary hearing for Berkshire Trace. The applicant has requested a standard rezoning and special use permit. The property is located at 196 Underwood Road. The decision will be made by a simple majority vote of the council. This hearing is a quasi-judicial evidentiary hearing. That means it is like a court hearing. State law sets a specific procedures and rules concerning how this council must make its decision. The council's discretion is limited. The council must base its decision upon competent, relevant, and substantial evidence in the record. A quasi-judicial decision is not based on public opinion or a show of hands. It must be made in accordance with the standards set forth in the ordinance and grounded in the evidence presented. If you plan to speak as a witness, please limit your comments to relevant facts and applicable standards rather than personal preference or opinions. Participation is limited. This meeting is open to the public. Everyone is welcome to watch. Parties withstanding will have rights to participate fully. Parties may present evidence, call witnesses, and make legal arguments. Parties are limited to the applicant, the local government, and individuals who can show that they will suffer special damages. Other individuals may serve as witnesses, and when called by the council, general witness testimony is limited to facts, not opinions. For certain topics, this council needs to hear opinion testimony from expert witnesses. These topics include projections about impacts on property values and projections about impacts on increased traffic. Individuals providing expert opinion must be qualified as experts and provide factual evidence upon which they base their expert opinion. Witnesses must affirm their testimony, and at this time, we will administer the oath for individuals who intend to provide witness testimony. And so that would be the folk from Berkshire Trace, Tyler, and then I think anybody that signed up for the public hearing. And so you all can just stand up together here in the front. So anybody that wants to speak, anybody from Berkshire Trace? We have to hold on, so what's the comment, we still want to speak, want to come up? All good. So right hand up. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the evidence you shall give to the council in this action shall be true, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God? Do. All right, good. Thank you. The parties to this case are entitled to an impartial counsel. A council member may not participate in this hearing if she or he has a fixed opinion about the matter, a financial interest in the outcome of the matter, or a close relationship with an affected person. Does any council member have any partiality to disclose or recusal to offer? Everybody good? All righty. Let's see. The parties to this case have rights for any ex parte communication to be disclosed. Ex parte communication is any communication about the case outside the public hearing. That may include site visits, as well as conversations with parties, staff, or the general public. Does any council member have any site visits to disclose? No. Okay. Does any council member have any conversations or other communications to disclose? No. Okay. Based on the disclosures we've heard from the council concerning the partiality and ex parte communications, does any member of the council or any party to this matter have an objection to a council member's participation in the hearing? All right. The Planning and Zoning Director, Tyler Morrow, will introduce this hearing. Before you start, please confirm that you were sworn at the start of the hearing. If not, I will administer that oath now, and you were sworn in. So we thank you for being here, Tyler.
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you all for having me. As mentioned, well, before that, I do that, I'd like to formally submit my staff report and presentation into the record for this project. The town has received 2 related applications from the applicant, a standard rezoning request and a special use permit request. For efficiency, I have included both of these items, and I'll be presenting those together in this presentation. However, they are 2 separate requests and would require 2 separate motions later in the meeting. So the subject property consists of 4 parcels located along Underwood Road and Rockwood Road. The applicant is Dustin Mills of Taft Mills Group LLC. The request is to rezone the property from C2 Interstate Business to NBD Neighborhood Business District. The site is approximately 7.71 acres, and the applicant proposes a 115 low-income housing tax credit multifamily development with a proposed density of 14.92 units per acre. So this property, as I mentioned, is currently zoned C2, which does not allow multifamily residential. In 2017, the town council amended the land development code to remove targeted residential uses from the C1 and C2 districts, and the land use plan was updated to reflect this policy direction. Because of this, the property must first be rezoned to a district where multifamily housing may be considered. The applicant has requested rezoning to neighborhood business district where multifamily development may be allowed only through the issuance and approval of a special use permit. This means two separate actions are before the board, a rezoning request and a special use permit request. If the rezoning is not approved, the special use permit request would then become moot. If the rezoning is approved but the special use permit is denied, the property would still carry the NBD zoning and could be developed with any other use allowed in that district. Special use permits are granted by town council following a recommendation from the planning board. This process is quasi-judicial, as the mayor has mentioned. Decisions must be based on competent evidence presented during the hearing rather than general opinion or political preference for approval. The council must make several findings, including that the application is complete, that the proposed use will not negatively impact the public health, safety, or welfare, and that it will not be detrimental to surrounding properties or public improvements. The council must also determine that the project complies with standards outlined in Article 3 of the Land Development Code. These standards evaluate access and traffic safety, parking, loading, utilities, buffering, signage, light impacts, open space, recreational areas, building placement and design, and potential operational impacts on surrounding neighborhoods. So the property and surrounding parcels are currently zoned C2. The area is primarily commercial in nature, with car dealerships and hotels being the most prominent uses. The site is currently developed as a quality inn. If the project is approved, the existing motel would cease operations and the structure would be demolished. To the east is the Stafford Hills residential development, which contains approximately 184 units on 16.82 acres, or a density of 10.94 units an acre. The property is also located near the airport road corridor, placing potential residents within close proximity to restaurants, retail services, grocery options, and also urgent care facilities. This proximity is important since this is proposed as an affordable housing development where residents may have limited access to personal vehicles. The site is also served by the Asheville Transportation, or by ART, Asheville Transportation. The top left image shows the existing motel currently in operation along Underwood Road, which would be removed if the project is approved. The top right image shows a wooded portion of the site located generally in the central area of the property. Bottom left image highlights a potential stream feature identified on USGS mapping. At this time, staff has not received confirmation from the Army Corps whether this feature qualifies as a water of the United States. If it does, it would then have to be protected in accordance with the town's ordinances. The bottom right image shows the property from Rockwood Drive looking towards Underwood Road. So moving into the site plan itself, the proposed site plan includes 5 residential buildings, totaling approximately 140,740 square feet of floor area. Individual building footprints range from roughly 9,600 square feet to 11,000 square feet. The project proposes a density of 14.92 units an acre, which is below the maximum allowed density of 16 units per acre in the NBD district. All buildings are proposed to be 3 stories. The development includes several resident amenities such as a community room, a playground, a tot lot, a covered picnic area, a computer center, an exercise room, and outdoor seating areas. 2 vehicular access points are proposed, one from Rockwood, which is maintained by NCDOT, and one from Underwood Road, which is maintained by the town. 5-foot wide sidewalks are proposed along all property frontage and will continue through the driveway crossings in accordance with town standards. The development also includes 10 bicycle parking spaces to support residents who may not have access to a personal vehicle. Existing vegetation is proposed to remain along much of the eastern property boundary to provide a buffer to nearby residential properties, although portions of the southeastern boundary does not currently include buffering. Parking is also provided at a ratio consistent with the Land Development Code, resulting in 247 required spaces, 18 of which would be ADA accessible. North Carolina General Statutes 160D 605 requires governing boards to adopt a land use plan consistency statement when considering zoning text or zoning amendments, including map amendments. This statement explains how the request aligns or conflicts with the town's adopted land use plan. In this case, the proposal is inconsistent with Goal 10 of the land use plan, which seeks to carefully manage higher density residential and direct it towards town's core near the future town center area while preserving commercial area for economic activity. However, an inconsistency with a land use plan does not automatically prohibit approval. State law allows governing boards to approve rezonings that conflict with this plan as long as the board adopts a statement explaining inconsistency and the reasonableness of that decision. The planning board reviewed the standard rezoning and special use permit at its regular meeting on March 17th. Following discussion and consideration of the evidence presented, the board voted 5-1 to recommend denial of the standard rezoning and 5-1 to recommend denial of the special use permit. The planning board's consistency statement is shown on the screen and included in the motion language. It states that the petition is inconsistent with the town's land use plan because it proposes higher density, as I mentioned previously. This slide shows a draft reasonableness statement for approval. This shows the planning board's reasonableness statement for denial. And I'm happy to answer any questions the council may have.
Do we have any questions?
On the Stafford Hills property, it's currently, like you said, 184 units and 16 acres roughly. What is it zoned at?
It is C2, so it was developed when multifamily or townhomes could be developed within C2.
Within C2?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
What other questions do we have? No more questions? Or, did you have one? I'm sorry.
Tyler, has there been any movement towards, or what is a requirement for any kind of traffic study for the Underwood Road section of this project?
So that has been discussed. So this project went before the town's technical review committee, on which DOT sits on that committee. So the town does not have our own threshold for requiring a TIA. So usually we depend on DOT to base our requirements off their requirements. And they've already mentioned that as a part, if this is approved, this project will still have to go through final site plan approval. And if that occurs, DOT is going to require that the project submit a TIA scoping document to better understand if this project would trigger anything through DOT. And if it does, then they would have to submit a TIA to NCDOT, and we would also get to review it as the municipality that the project is within. But currently, right now, it's undetermined, and we don't have a trigger that would be lesser than DOT's.
Okay, thank you.
What other questions do we have? Comments?
I'm just curious, is this the same hotel that we were talking about the end of last year? Okay.
Different. Across the street.
I mean, I got comments. I know there's other apartment complexes that's close to here, that's affordable housing. This is actually in Buncombe County. One's meeting at 2.3 miles from that existing area off of Haywood Road. And I know there's one going to be built about 1.5 miles down the road right here off of 25. I guess it's fixing to start, but that is affordable housing. So we do have some affordable housings in here, but that's a comment right there. And I know we did a study, was it 2-3 years ago? The apartment complexes was not really liked on that study, but that's just a comment right there.
Any other questions, comments?
I think maybe the study you're referring to was a
Survey.
Survey.
Yeah, survey, yeah.
Public survey.
All righty, thank you, Tyler.
Absolutely.
And now the applicant can present evidence in support of the request. And just as a reminder, any evidence or arguments must focus upon the applicable standards. And then just before you begin, you state your name, your address, or I guess probably just name in relation to the case, I think.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My name is Brandon Freeman. I represent the applicant here today, Taft Mills Group. We're going to have several people come up and talk to you today and tell you about this project. As always, Mr. Morrow did an absolutely outstanding job introducing this project and going through a lot of the elements. So we're going to try not to repeat ourselves too much and tell you some of the information we think is really important about this project and why we think it's a great fit for Fletcher. May I have just a minute to try and plug in here?
Absolutely.
And not mess up the technology?
Absolutely. Hopefully that works okay for you.
And you may have to duplicate this. It works.
Okay.
There we go.
So I'm going to do a little bit of talking here. My intent is not really to give the council testimony. There are people here who are actually qualified who are going to do that. But I would like to give an overview again. Mr. Morrow covered a lot of this, so he's made my job pretty easy here. All right, technical difficulties have not started yet. There we go.
There you go.
All right. So again, the current zoning is that interstate commercial district. We are asking to be moved to a neighborhood business district that would allow for residential housing. The current use is an aging motel and vacant parcels that are next to it. Around the area are car lots. This project would be served by municipal water and MSD. The address, as you know, is on Underwood Road. What we are proposing is 115 low-income housing tax credit apartment units. And we'll talk about that more. But I just wanted to point out at the beginning that the economic area that we sit in is the Asheville district. And it really skews a lot of these numbers to where when we are talking about the people who are going to be served by this development, we are talking about, folks who are engaged in the workforce. We're talking about teachers. We're talking about people who are on Social Security income. We're talking about, entry-level EMTs, firefighters, and police officers. So that's the kind of housing that we're talking about here. It would be apartment style. We are dealing with a group who does a lot of great apartment buildings across the country, and they're based here out of North Carolina, in Greenville, North Carolina. So another thing that we talked about was, that Mr. Morrow talked about, was whether this project aligns with the comprehensive plan. So this, again, is not me giving you testimony on what your comprehensive plan says. It speaks for itself, but I do want to point out one thing, and if you look at the last page of your comprehensive plan, it talks about a survey that was conducted where it was asked, hey, what does our town need? And one of those things that was needed was rental housing. So we think that this plan is consistent with your land use development plan because it will bring that rental housing to your community. It also points to working with developers to come up with something that's the right fit. I will tell you here today that we have a group who has done a lot of this, and they are willing to talk to you today about how to make sure this project is something that we can be comfortable with. So another thing, anytime you do something like this, the law requires you to be reasonable. It's a good idea to be reasonable. One thing that we can look at that makes this reasonable is that this project, which you can see outlined in blue here, abuts an already existing residential subdivision. So this isn't a situation where you would be worried about a spot zoning or any issues like that. This is something that would be allowed in North Carolina law, in my opinion. So this is, talking more about, is this reasonable to go here? Would it be safe for people to be here? This area is surprisingly walkable. So this development is going to be something that has a disproportionate amount of folks who aren't driving. So it's actually going to be a little less traffic. It's going to have, more people who are using public transportation, and it is important that they be able to reach that. If you look in on the satellite imagery, you can tell that there are sidewalks here. I've got arrows pointing to them, and existing crosswalks that can get people to places where they will need to go, including public transportation. Not all of the sidewalks have been put in yet. If you ask anyone from DOT, they will tell you that they kind of do things a little backwards. They probably wouldn't put it exactly like that, but it is the case that they don't build sidewalks until there's a need for the sidewalks there. But, our hope would be that we would see those gaps fill in as those areas get used more. This is just a great image that sort of shows, to the north of this property, all the things that are there that residents could walk to use and could go to find employment. Get the, sort of jobs that you need to thrive in Fletcher, to thrive in town. All right, I might get someone from the Taft Mills Group to talk a little bit more about this, but the low-income housing tax credit program is a federally funded program. So the money that's going to come to this program is coming from the federal government. It's not going to take any money from the community. And it is an extremely successful program. It is a net positive for your economy. It is a job creator. It will bring people to frequent Fletcher businesses, and it'll be a workforce that Fletcher businesses can use to staff their businesses. And this is going back to something I sort of jumped the gun on for who might you expect to see living in this community. Bear with me on the math here, but I'm pretty sure I got it right. I did it a few times. I'm not particularly talented at math by any means, but by my math, the people you could imagine living here is a family of four who's making around $60,000 a year. That it could be a single parent with two kids making $55,000 a year. The average teacher salary starting in Henderson County is less than that $50,000. So this would be a prime sort of apartment place for that worker. The average Social Security retirement benefit at the moment would qualify someone to live in this apartment complex. All right, you all have heard enough from me. I hope you're not going to hear too much more from me. I'm going to bring up someone from the Taft Mills Group. Please come up. I'm going to switch parts with you. Can you please introduce yourself to the board and tell them your name, how you connect with the group, what you do?
Yep, thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm Nate Broman-Folks. I'm Vice President of Development for Taft Mills Group. So Taft Mills Group is a real estate development company. We specialize in building affordable housing. That's what we do. That's what we build. And we do that through the low-income housing tax credit program, which Brandon mentioned. So one of the questions we often get is, well, what is the tax credit program? Is this Section 8? Is this public housing? What is it? It's neither of those things. So we apply for the tax credits. It is a federal program. If we are awarded the tax credits, we then sell those tax credits to investors. And those investors fund the majority of the deal, right? And by investors, you think large banks, large companies that need the money to write off their taxes. And so if you think of when someone normally buys a home, put down a 20% down payment, get a mortgage for 80%, kind of flip that with this model. So we'll get a mortgage for 20%, and the equity from selling the tax credits supports the rest, right? So that's how we're able to keep rents affordable, charge lower rents because we have lower mortgage than you would see on a market rate development.
So what would the rent be? What would the average rent be?
The average rent, I can pull that up. So it depends on the size of the household, because we'll have 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units. And we will serve incomes of families at 60% of the area median income and below. And so the rents will range, for 1-bedroom units about $1,000, 2-bedroom units about $1,200, and 3-bedroom units about $1,400.
Thank you.
How many of the units are going to be at those rates? All of them, or?
All of them.
All of them?
Yep.
Okay.
I'm sorry, didn't mean to interrupt you.
No problem, no problem. Happy to answer questions that you have.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
So Taft Mills Group has been developing affordable housing for over a decade now. The principals of our company have been doing it for about 3 decades themselves, and have developed over 100 communities, over $850 million in total development costs. We're based out of Greenville, North Carolina, so we have developed most of our stuff in North Carolina, but are also active in South Carolina, Virginia, and Maryland. And are fortunate enough to be consistently ranked as one of the top 50 affordable housing developers in the country, and have received North Carolina's highest honor in affordable housing development. And this slide shows you some of the places that we've developed across North Carolina. As you can see, we've developed across most of the state. And this gives you a look and a feel for a lot of the development that we do. We do have local architects from McMillan Pasden that are part of the team, as well as local engineering firm from 3 Notch Group that are providing a architectural and development style that really matches the Fletcher and surrounding area as well. And with that, speaking of our civil engineering team, I'll turn it over to John with 3 Notch Group.
And before John gets up, I just want to say, so John is going to talk to the specific standards of your special use permit ordinance. And when Mr. Morrow introduced this project, he reminded us that the special use permit process is one of those things where the specific standards govern. So when you're making the decision, what's really important is to know what are the standards of your special use permit, and are we able to meet those? And if we do meet those, then we're entitled to a special use permit. Mr. Kennard has worked very hard to try to get those standards. However, I think it's the fun job of this council to test him on that and ask him as many questions as you can think of about this site plan. So, John, if you want to set up on the hot seat, will you please tell this board your name, where you work, and your connection with this project?
Sure. Good evening. I'm John Kennard with 3 Notch Group. I'm the Vice President of North Carolina, and I will be the engineer of record for this project.
And can you please tell the board a little bit of your background, your training, and your experience in the area of site plan design?
Sure. Yeah, I've been doing this about 25 years, 20 of those here in Western North Carolina. I've designed dozens of sites just like this. In fact, I'm working on about 8 of them currently. So a lot of experience in that area.
Have you ever been recognized an expert in front of a board like this in a quasi-judicial proceeding?
I have.
Can you take a guess as to how many times?
20?
Right. I would tell the board, I bet that number is higher, but I think it was at least 20. At this time, Mr. Mayor, I would like to tender Mr. Kennard as an expert in civil engineering and site plan design.
Thank you.
Mr. Kennard, can you please walk the board through the site plan and tell them about just the site plan generally?
Sure. Well, first of all, the overall kind of layout, you can see we really tried hard to concentrate the buildings, parking, and infrastructure along the roadways. and along the existing commercial to the west. And in doing so, that allowed us to leave a pretty substantial buffer to the east, especially along the existing residential along the eastern side. Just a quick overview. Some of this you may have already heard, but there are 5 buildings proposed for the site. They range in size from about 29,000 total square feet to about 31,000 total square feet. Each of them is 3 stories, and they range from about 22 to 26 units per building. For ingress and egress on the site, you can see that there's an entrance to the south on Underwood Road and one to the north on Rockwood Road. And of course, that connects all the way through the site, allowing safe ingress and egress for vehicles and emergency vehicles. In addition to that, we do have sidewalks throughout the property, and just like the vehicular access, they also do tie to Underwood Road to the south and Rockwood Road to the north. All of these entrances that we show, both sidewalk and vehicular access, will be required to get a permit from DOT. You heard a little bit about the TIA process earlier. If that's something we're required to do, we can do that in-house, and we will be doing that. Parking, we do meet the minimum parking requirements for the town of Fletcher. We feel that that number is probably a lot higher than we actually need. You heard again that this type of tenant typically does not need as many vehicles per residence. So we should be more than sufficient on parking. We do have 18 ADA spaces, which is a bit more than would be required typically.
How many spaces?
Sorry, I'm not sure who said that, but just wait a minute. We'll have a moment for the public to be able to speak and ask questions, but that's not this moment.
247 spaces.
And thank you.
And 18 ADA spaces. So with all that parking, lighting will be required per the town ordinance. The town ordinance also does require and limit the amount of light pollution, both dark sky compliant fixtures and the light that actually leaves the property. So there are very good and stringent requirements from the town. Similar, there are landscaping requirements, open space requirements, parking, landscaping, street trees, and the like. And as you can see on this plan, I think it does a good job of showing the buffer areas that we're going to provide. So this buffer would be a minimum of 20 feet. In most areas, it's much more than that, as much as 100 feet from the properties to the east of the site. Typically, that will be natural vegetation that will be undisturbed. If we do have to disturb any of that buffer, it will be replanted with evergreens and shrubs and similar. Utilities. So this site is served by MSD of Buncombe County and City of Asheville Water. We do have allocations in hand from both of those agencies. And of course, anything we do here would have to be permitted and approved by them as well. There will be some signs on the property. These will be your typical residential monument signs, probably one at each entrance, one on Underwood Road and one on Rockwood Road. Again, that's also something that would require a permit from the town of Fletcher. Amenities. So as you can see on the site plan, we have several covered picnic areas, lots of green open space for passive activities, and we do have a playground and tot lot proposed on the site. And last but not least for me, stormwater. So we are aware, and you will probably hear about some stormwater issues from the property on the east, the multifamily property on the east. So I have spent quite a bit of time looking at this and thinking about this. I tried to reach out to the HOA a couple of times, was unable to connect with them, but certainly would plan to work with them on any issues they have moving forward. But we have looked at three issues out there. One is that we believe the existing stormwater infrastructure is probably undersized and maybe not functioning very well. We'd be happy to look at that, make recommendations on how that might be improved. Two, our site, which is something we definitely can control. I don't know if we have, can we go back to an aerial existing? That's all right. So, yeah, that's good enough, yeah. So you can see on this site, on this aerial image, there is an existing hotel to the south of the property. All of this hotel, all of our property, all of Apple Tree, everything drains directly towards this multifamily development to the east. Currently, this site is completely undetained, untreated, and it's just running off, and certainly, as you'll see later, causing some issues for our neighbors. What we plan to do, obviously, is everything that we do will be treated, it will be detained, and in fact, we will go above and beyond the Fletcher ordinance. So the Fletcher ordinance asks us to detain the one-year storm. The developer here has agreed to increase that to the 10-year storm, which is a pretty substantial increase of cost. But that 10-year storm will treat and detain well over 96% of the storms that we would ever see on this site. The last issue that we do see is, of course, Apple Tree to the west of us, which, as you can see, is a large impervious development. That one concerns us too. We don't know how well the stormwater is functioning. We don't know how well that pond is functioning that you can see on the east side of their site. So that's absolutely something that we will be looking at. It's going to impact us just as much as it impacts our neighbors to the east. So we will be looking at those three things in whole as part of our stormwater management process. I think that's it. Unless you have something or you have questions for me.
Do I have any questions, comments?
Just speaking of the stormwater,
Yep.
are we talking retention ponds? Is this underground containment type facility? What type of stormwater retention are you talking about?
Yes to both. It will probably be a combination of underground. We use what's called StormTex. StormTex provide both water quality and detention. We're going to try to infiltrate as much of the stormwater as we possibly can. If we can infiltrate it, that's great. That means zero runoff, not limited runoff. It means zero runoff. But it'll be a combination of StormTex under the parking lot. The big one kind of to the east there, likely to be a wet pond or something similar to that, or perhaps a bioretention pond. But it'll be a combination of measures.
And is there any plan to reuse some of that storm runoff for the property as far as watering green spaces, that sort of thing, which would mitigate some of the additional runoff and put it back on the space?
Yeah, we haven't planned that as of yet.
Okay.
I have a general question.
Sure.
You guys keep saying that the tenants would need public transportation. How do you come up with that? That you don't need so many parking spaces because most people don't have vehicles?
I'm sorry, what was the question again?
Yeah. Yeah, you're good.
I think the thought is like this, but because we are dealing with folks who are, not in the upper echelon of the socioeconomic groups, they aren't going to necessarily have a car for every person in the household. They may be sharing a vehicle, which, this day and age, isn't always the norm. Or they may rely completely on public transportation and not own a vehicle at all. They may engage more in, getting a ride share, Uber, trying to use a bicycle, public transportation. So the decision around parking, both to increase ADA parking spaces and, to know that we're probably going to be okay on parking is really from the experience. Oh, look, here's someone who knows more about it than me.
Yep, so we have about a couple thousand units on the ground, right, and lots of development experience. And we have studied the parking needs of several of our developments and have found that in all the cases, the parking requirements exceeded what our actual demand was. So in our case, if we have 1.25 spaces per unit, that typically is more than we need. This would be significantly more than what we have found to practically need for our residents. Of course, many residents will have cars, right? but just not to the same level that you would typically see in a market rate development.
And I guess to her point, I think I saw that the ART system, the Asheville Regional Transit was in walking distance, but I'm not sure if the Henderson County system is in walking distance or not. So the Apple Transit, I'm not sure if y'all were,
I know the ART transit stop is maybe
yeah. it was
2/10 of a mile
right.
from it. Yeah, close walking distance to it.
Okay. Do we have any other? Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
That's a great question. I don't have an answer to it, I'm very sorry.
That's okay.
We were looking at the closest bus site there, and honestly, I don't know how those two systems interact. I know that they have different, Weaverville has a connection with ART. I don't know if the Fletcher Transit Center system has a connection with ART. I'm sorry. But I told you, you'd be talking to people smarter than me. And, he's proved my point. So along with the less of a need for parking, I do think it talks to that need for, where it can lessen our concerns when it comes to traffic. I think there are a few reasons why you don't need to have concerns about traffic in this project. First of all, there's a pretty onerous process to go through that. Getting a driveway permit from NCDOT is nothing to sneeze at. They are going to walk the developer through their paces, and if there is a problem, it's going to have to be addressed. The other thing is, if this were, the way this property is currently zoned, if a car dealership went in there, if 2 hotels went in there, if you look at this is a pretty large piece of property, you could fit a lot on there and it could be pretty dense. It would have a lot higher traffic burden than what this project is going to bring to bear. So I think that's one reason why there was less of a concern about traffic.
Thank you for that. What other questions or comments we have from council?
Can I ask one more question about your figuring of the vehicles on the property? Being that y'all don't have any properties here local to the Asheville, have you looked at what other complexes are figuring and what they have found out, which is real time to what we have here versus it might be a different situation in Durham or in the area with which y'all come from and have other facilities?
So as part of the tax credit program, North Carolina Housing Finance Agency has studied this across the state and has parking requirements for tax credit developments no matter where they are in the state. And so from that perspective, there is a good sense of what is needed no matter where you are in the state for the number of parking. And this, their requirements are significantly lower than the town Fletcher's requirements and what we'd be providing here.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, to Brandon's, I guess, point right there, he said it'd be probably more traffic and if we had hotels and everything, but can you elaborate that? Because I was, in my brain, it would be like if hotels and I was taking vacation, that's 1 car per family versus 2 or 3 cars per family if it's just a residential place. So I would think it'd be flipped, because when I go on vacation somewhere, we don't take 2 vehicles to go on vacation. But if I go home right now, there's multiple vehicles parked in the parking lot. So can you walk me through that? How do you come up with that? But that there would be more for a hotel versus this right here?
Yeah, and I think it would depend on the hotel, but if you think about when you do go on vacation, you're taking 1 car, but there's usually multiple trips, right? You're going out back and forth for breakfast, you're going out back and forth for lunch, maybe you're finding an evening activity. I am not a traffic engineer, and John's going to throw something at me if I get too deep in the weeds on that, but my understanding is that the trip calculations for hotels are different than you would do trip calculations for a residential development. I think maybe some of the businesses, like a car dealership, something like that is another example of where, you would see, similar if not more traffic from an as-of-right development on this piece of property. We think this is a lowering the intensity of use that would be on this property, as opposed to what's allowed as of right. I stand to be corrected by a traffic engineer, but that's my understanding.
Will the rents always be fixed at the 60% AMI indefinitely?
For at least the next 30 years.
And then after 30 years, it's
So as part of the tax credit program, we commit to deed restrictions that make it affordable for 30 years. Beyond that, there are a couple of different options. A lot of tax credit developers, at the end of the 30 years, they will apply for additional tax credits to do a major renovation to the property and keep it affordable for a lot longer, another 30 years. And that's a standard approach. We're affordable housing developers, and so, that would be something that we would be looking at the end of the 30 years.
So y'all would try to get tax credits again after the end of the 30 years? Is that what I'm hearing?
That, we specialize in affordable housing, that's what we do, so I certainly can't commit to what the company would do in 30 years, but that would be what fits with our mission and what we do as a company.
Now, you've got, how many bedrooms total? I mean, you said you got 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units, okay?
Correct.
On the summary sheet, it's saying that you get 2 spaces per 1 bedroom or 1 space per bedroom. So I'm thinking 2 bedroom would have 2 spaces, 3 bedroom would have 3. Is that correct? Is that what but you just said it has 1 1/4.
So we don't assign spaces to units.
Yeah.
But our studies, our personal studies of our properties show that 1 1/4 is more than enough. For NCHFA's requirements, it's 1.75 spaces per unit, is what's found to be needed on average throughout a family property, which a family property normally consists of 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units. Does that answer your question?
So it won't have what the parking summary has on it, on our paperwork here about the, you understand what I'm saying?
It will. I think he's given you the metrics that they use
Yes.
internally, which are less than what we are providing here today. So we'll be meeting Fletcher Town Council or Fletcher Code parking requirements.
Okay.
We do a lot of this work, and we find that these projects are always overparked. There's always empty parking spaces. As a kid who grew up playing roller hockey in empty parking lots, I'm a big fan of it. But I predict that that's what's going to happen to this project. It's not a bad thing, but, it's good that we meet the requirements of the town's code.
Do we have any other questions, comments? You all have anything else?
I think the thing I would say is this is not the last stop for this development. Even if we receive approval here today, this project will enter a highly competitive process, and there's no guarantee that it will be selected. It's a pretty big honor for a project like this to get selected. I think it's also a pretty big honor for a community to get one of these projects. They aren't given out. There aren't a lot of them given out.
Okay, do we have anything else, council?
I just was going to add one clarification. I know they brought up about the transit with Asheville, the Asheville Rides Transit and Art. And the Henderson counties, which is Apple Country Transit,
Yeah, I was wondering
does
about that
connect,
stuff.
and it's near the airport.
Okay.
So there's a connection. I thought I'd remember that, and I was just double checking that.
All righty. Any other questions, comments?
Yeah, from a management standpoint, and I'm looking 10, 15 years down the road, are you guys still going to be the management company, or is this something that's going to be sold off to somebody else 5, 10 years down the road, where you go from a very well-known, well-reputable management company to somebody we start having issues with?
Right, good question. So we, and I should have mentioned this before, but we do have on-site property management as well as on-site maintenance staff that are there every day with eyes on the community, making sure it's well-run. We've been in business for about 12 years now and have never sold any properties. So we are long-term developers, owners, and we use a third-party third-party property management company that specializes in running tax credit developments, because it's a pretty niche and nuanced, and takes expertise to know how to do it well. And we have one that does it really well, and have been using them for quite a while, and that's all they do. So definitely long-term owners and holders of our properties.
Now, I'm going to revert to the retired cop in me. From a public safety standpoint in this area, for the residents and the Stafford community, as well as the businesses that surround other places you've built, what have you seen the trends in those areas be as far as public safety goes, increase in crime, increase in problems? I know that was one of the things that were addressed in the planning board, and I just wanted to throw that out.
Yeah, it's a question that comes up quite a lot for us. And I'm happy to say that we have not seen or experienced an increase in crime in any of the areas that we've developed in. Part of the reason for that is we have a pretty strenuous process for allowing residents to live there, right? So they have to pass background checks. They have to pass income checks, not only to show that they make enough income to qualify within the 60% AMI level, but also that they're making enough that they can pay the rent. Because this isn't a HUD-assisted development. We're in charge of running a successful development, and that includes making sure we have tenants that can pay the rent and be good neighbors. We also have security cameras throughout the properties on all of our sites. We have the on-site property management. We have also reached out to the police chief and started that relationship. That's something that we often do. We found that having good relationships with the police department can play a big role in ensuring the safety of a community, because no matter whether it's market rate, affordable housing development, or a motel, things are going to happen, and when they happen, you need to have that open line of communication to get it solved and get it fixed and get it addressed for the long term. And so that's how we conduct business.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Council, staff, you all?
We would just request that we be allowed to reserve some time for rebuttal to any community comments.
Sure.
We would also like to clarify, I understand that, there are a lot of folks who have signed up to testify as witnesses. It's our understanding that they are here to testify as witnesses and not act as parties. I think the only parties here were the applicant. I just want to make that clarification, and we're ready to listen.
Sounds good, thank you. Okay, we will hear from other individuals wishing to provide factual testimony concerning the request. As a reminder, witnesses should provide factual testimony as to how this project does or does not meet the standards. The council must base its decision upon evidence in the record, not personal preference or opinion. Please be aware that the applicant and any other parties have certain rights to object to your testimony and cross-examine you as a witness. The council, though, will determine what evidence to consider and how much weight to assign it. And I will call each witness individually. Let's see, we have a couple people signed up. And the first person we have signed up is Stormy Ellis. If you want to just take the podium, and what I will say, when you take the podium, please state your name, your address, in relation to the case. And we will also have 3 minutes for members of the public to speak. And whenever you state your name and your address, your time will begin whenever the clerk's ready.
Thank you.
In relation to the case, I'm sorry.
No worries. Members of council, my name is Stormy Ellis. I'm an assistant district attorney in Buncombe County. I am also a resident of Fletcher. I live right off of Fanning Bridge Road at 20 South Wildwood Road. I also previously, I just moved from the Lansford area, which is that small area, if you go back to your maps, where the water pool, that actually says my name, Storm, and actually is right about 20 feet from the Lansford Circle area. One of the main things that I looked at when I testified here before, and I know that there are a few other individuals out here that live on Lansford, is that water issue. And one of the things that we mentioned is looking at that flat map. That's fine and well, you've got a pool of water here, but what doesn't tell you is the elevation. The elevation is way above where Lansford actually sits. And those water pools are actually designed to flow over. And where will it flow over? Right into our houses there. That's one of the reasons why I left, is because we had water up to the doors. One of these gentlemen here, I believe he has actual video of the storm water that comes in there. And that's one of the huge worries. And one of the things that I haven't heard is one of the things we talked about is where are the berms? Where is the security for that water going to be? What is the plan? Not, oh, we'll think about it. The other thing is that when they talk about the egress and ingress into that area, they talk about Underwood and Rockwell. But if anybody is from there and knows about that area, Rockwell is just a circle. It goes right out into Underwood, and it comes right out at that split where you cross over the road. And so that is going to back up traffic immensely. You put 247 cars extra in that area, you've got a 2-lane road on Underwood up there, and I'll tell you what, it's slick as frogs, not on a door handle when you come up there on the in the winter. And then you've got the problem with the Underwood traffic there. Also, right there is the alcohol ABC store, right at the tail end of that area. And I think that those are the 3 reasons why this does not fit in our plan for Fletcher. The traffic, the bringing people in from lower incomes to alcohol, having that right there. The access to the traffic, or to the
And that is your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I should have. Guys, let's just not have applause. I appreciate it. Thank y'all. We want to keep this sweet. And Stormy, I should have asked you, but I think you were sworn in at the start, correct?
Sir, yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. All right, I'm having trouble reading this second name, but they live at 8 Round Robin Lane? Okay, thank you. And sir, if you will, please state your name, your address, relation to the case, and you were sworn in at the start, correct?
Yes.
Okay, just
And
state
my
your...
name is Olmedo Vargas. I live in Mills River. I own a construction company that we do renovations, and I feel having a affordable housing in the area would be very good. Asheville is very expensive, and we need something like that coming out to the area. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Okay, next we have Mr. or Mrs. Glenn Weber. Are you Glenn Weber? Okay, do you want to come to the podium?
Well, I was going to have a different thing. I thought I was signing the right form.
Okay, you don't want to speak?
No.
Okay.
I'll say it.
Okay. Jennifer Bublik? What? Okay, thank you. And you were sworn in at the start? Okay, so just state your name, your address, and your relation to the case.
Hello. My name is Jennifer Bubinick. I live at 29 Farrington Circle in the Stafford Hills neighborhood of Fletcher.
Okay.
I've lived in the South Asheville area for 12 years and at this address for 5 years. I was a member of the Asheville Planning and Zoning Board for 3 years. I previously served as the vice chair of the San Diego Zoning and Economic Board. I'm entering my opposition into the public record regarding the proposed rezoning of the property located at 196 Underwood Road from C12 Interstate Commercial to NBD Neighborhood Business District for the purpose of the multi-use housing development. While I recognize the regional need for diverse housing options, currently working with Mountain Housing Authority and HUD to rent out rental properties, the selection of this specific site for residential-centric NBD designation is fundamentally incompatible with the existing environmental conditions, public health safety standards, and the long-term economic goals of our community, including the Fletcher Connect's final plan. My opposition is based on the following critical factors. Firstly, the C2 interstate designation serves as a crucial function to accommodating business that thrives on highly visible and direct access to major transportation arteries. These businesses often include larger retail establishments, service providers, and hospitality venues that cater to broader regional traffic and contribute significantly to the local tax base. Reclassifying this land to NBD, even with multi-use component, risks displacing these essential businesses or inhibiting their future growth. NBD designation is designed for smaller, local serving businesses and residential integration, which may not be appropriate for the scale and operational needs of a C2 area. The property opens up to the ABC store, which the National Institute of Health found in a 2009 study that alcohol outlets in lower income and disadvantaged communities raises serious public health concerns and has negative health consequences because of alcohol availability. The subject property sits within the immediate impact zone of the I-26 corridor, which currently carries an annual average daily traffic volume exceeding 70,000 vehicles per day. Per the Fletcher Connects 2020 plan, the average daily traffic on Underwood Road was 2,300 cars. However, that number is now higher as the study is 6 years old. These two roads converging find lower air quality and noise pollution. Traffic is backed up at the McDonald's light, with people cutting in and out and stoplight waiting times over 5 minutes a day. Adding 247 cars to this two-lane road will put a hardship on the daily amount of traffic. It's already reached its capacity. The neighborhood business district is intended to foster human-scale walkable environments. However, the infrastructure surrounding the C2 interstate zone is engineered for high-velocity logistics and regional transit. Introducing pedestrians, cyclists, and neighborhood traffic into an area dominated by interstate off-ramps and heavy freight creates an inherent safety hazard. This proposal offers bike parking, but there's no bike lanes on Underwood or Airport Road. This is a failure to communicate between DOT, Town of Fletcher, and Buncombe and Henderson County. It is not uncommon to see flatbeds and 18-wheelers pulling in daily for deliveries to Apple Tree, Honda, or McDonald's. I'll send the rest of my letter to the council.
Thank you. Guys, let's hold applause, please. No applause. Next, we are Wes Stroop. Unless you were sworn in at the beginning. Okay, just state your name, your address in relation to the case.
I am Wes Stroop. I live at 86 Lansford Circle, and I'm a resident of Fletcher, North Carolina. Before we start, could I ask for an extension of the time because of the fact that part of my testimony would be considered expert pertaining to the case?
We're maintaining a 3-minute limit.
All right. Well, I'll hustle. My name is Wes Stroop. I live on Lansford Circle here in Fletcher. I'm the president of the Stafford Hills HOA, representing 189 homes and well over 400 residents, many of whom are voters in this community. I'm also a licensed general contractor. I own an environmental company that specializes in stormwater management. So when I speak tonight, I'm not just speaking as a concerned neighbor. I'm speaking from direct professional experience with exactly the kind of issue this project will create. At the last meeting, I submitted video evidence showing the current stormwater conditions impacting Lansford Circle. That footage was not theoretical. It was real. Documented runoff from a property that is currently wooded and undeveloped. And that's the key point. Right now, that land naturally absorbs water. Trees, soil, and vegetation slow it down, spread it out, and allow it to infiltrate. The moment you replace that with buildings, rooftops, roads, and parking areas, you fundamentally change how water behaves. You increase runoff volume, the speed, and you concentrate that flow directly toward neighboring properties like ours. Now, I understand the developer has presented a stormwater plan, but I want to be very clear. No engineered stormwater plan can replicate absorption of a natural wooded tract. It doesn't exist. And more importantly, it cannot guarantee downstream properties will not be negatively impacted. As someone who works in this field every day, I can tell you these systems are designed to meet minimum standards on paper. They are not designed to eliminate risk. They clog, they fail, they get overwhelmed during real storm events. And when they do, that water goes somewhere. In this case, it will go to Lansford Circle. So the question for you tonight isn't just about approving a development. It's about whether you are willing to accept known increased risk to an existing residential community. Because once this is built, there is no undo button. There are broader concerns. This is currently commercially zoned property. A request before you is to rezone it for high-density residential use. That is a fundamental change, not just in land use, but in impact. Placing over 100-unit affordable housing development directly adjacent to an established residential neighborhood raises real concerns. Increased density and traffic, strain on infrastructure, impact to property values, safety considerations that come with that scale of change. And I would be remiss not to point out again, the property sits directly beside an ABC store. That combination is simply not a responsible planning decision. And let me be clear, this is not about opposing growth. This is about appropriate growth in appropriate locations with responsible planning. This location fails that test. The Planning Board already recognized these issues and voted 5-1 to recommend denial. I urge you to follow that recommendation, because approving this project means accepting permanent consequences for the residents I represent and for the surrounding community. We are not asking for special treatment. We are asking you to protect an existing neighborhood from a preventable problem. On behalf of the residents of Stafford Hill and myself, I respectfully ask you to vote to deny. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. All righty. We're not doing loopholes, y'all. All right. James Lloyd. And Mr. Lloyd, were you sworn in at the beginning?
Yes, sir.
Okay. If you will, just for your record, just state your name, address in relation to the case. And before you begin, is the timer working okay?
Yes, I had to reset it. For some reason, it didn't go back some before, not being able to see it from the other side.
Okay.
I'm good.
All righty.
I'll be brief.
Sure.
Again, my name is James Lloyd. I'm an attorney. I represent Stafford Hills. They've asked that I address the zoning issue. There are two issues in front of the council today. One is the zoning issue. If you deny the request to rezone, you don't have to address any of the special permit stuff. 90% of what you heard from the developer had to go to the special permit issues, didn't have to go to the zoning issue. The General Assembly, when they passed a statute regarding rezoning, issued guidelines. And first of all, it's entirely within your discretion to rezone. That's no one's questioning that. But there are guidelines on what you should consider. And I'll just read them out. This is from General Statute 160D 605B. The benefits and detriments to the landowners, the neighbors, and the surrounding community, the size, physical conditions, and other attributes of the area proposed to be rezoned, the relationship between the current actual and permissible development on the tract and adjoining areas and the development that will be permissible under the proposed amendment, why the action taken is in public interest, and any change conditions warranting the amendment. And I think it's important when you're thinking about, are we going to change the zoning, is why is it zoned what it is? And if you look it's actually in the materials, when they did the 2017-2018 update, the statement there is, in the 5 years since the 2013 plan, Fletcher and the region in general has seen a rise in high-density apartment-style development. This update seeks to clarify the town's intent to steer such development to the core center of the town in the immediate vicinity of the future town center, and to potentially further limit higher density residential and commercial zoning districts so as to preserve them for commercial growth and to aid in limiting the region-wide sprawl being observed. Anyone who's lived here for a significant amount of time, I live in Candler. I've lived in Western North Carolina for over 30 years. There's clearly a sprawl of apartment complexes in Western North Carolina, in the Asheville, Henderson, Fletcher region. And when you look at that statement and the guidelines set forth by the legislature, there's really not a very good reason to rezone this property. It makes much more sense to keep it commercial property. I believe I'm going to run out of time, so I'll stop right there.
Thank you for your
Thank you for
comments.
your time.
Thank you. And finally, we have Satish Patel, and I apologize if I mispronounce. Okay. That brings us to the end of the list. Is there anybody that wishes to speak that was not signed up? Would you like to speak? Were you sworn in? Okay. We'll swear you in then. Let me make sure I have everything I need. Okay. Raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the evidence you shall give to the council in this action shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So help you God.
Hi, my name is Jessica. I work in Fletcher, but I live in Swananoa. My son works in Fletcher. My daughter-in-law works in Fletcher. They live in Candler because there's no affordable housing out here. They have 3 kids. They pay $1,300 a month to live in Candler and then drive back and forth up 26. They don't drink, so the ABC store is not a factor for them, but the rent is. The gas money is. So I would say, take that into consideration. And then also, with the wastewater or the stormwater, it's a commercial property. So at some point, it's not going to be forest there anymore. It's just too busy of an area for it to stay forest. So, I think that we have to look at that future as well. Those are, also, I work in hotels. They make $14, $15 an hour. This is ideal housing for all the hotels that we have in the area. So for them to have a place to live. And that's all. Thanks.
Thank you for your comments.
Ma'am, could you tell me what your last name was?
Green, like the color?
Okay, thank you.
Did you get her address as well?
No, I just thought that she lives in Canada.
What's your? What?
I'm sorry.
Do you mind, just for the record, to come and state your address?
119 Scenic View Drive in Swananoa.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else that wishes to speak during public comment? Sir? If you will, and were you sworn in at the beginning? All righty. That's good. Is there anybody else that's gonna want to speak? Nobody else? Okay, we'll do it from up here.
Sweet.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the evidence you shall give to this council in this action shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you
Yes,
God?
sir.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Thank you, Councilman and Mayor. Everybody appreciate your time.
And if you will, just state your name, your address in relation to the case as well.
My name is Chris Rivera. I live in Hendersonville, but I also work in Fletcher. And I have 25 employees. We also work in the Fletcher area. We handle multiple hotels, off-airport parking and shuttle services. So I have lots of experience with hotels and parking. And just knowing that, low affordable housing would be good for, like she just said, $14, $15 an hour staff, $16, $17 an hour staff. It would be more affordable for them. It's hard, as you know, the market's hard to hire folks. So, that would really help. And it also being a commercial project, if the developer decides to build a 1,000-room hotel and it was sold out, we'll have 1,000 cars on that road, right? So so we have to keep that in consideration. They can do a development, do multiple hotels, do multiple rooms, do multiple restaurants. Now you have more than 249, whatever they said, on their parking spaces. You're gonna have actual physical cars that are rented or, driven here. And the ABC store, that's no pun intended. They're in all neighborhoods. But, we want to be a diverse community, diverse culture. And, those are, you got to have strong will, Jesus first, so you gotta, that can't be a driving factor. Stormwater, of course, that's a big concern. So I hope the developers do have a good plan for that. They got to have a plan for that. So that's my 2 cents on some actual facts as I'm out there on the ground. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. And if I heard you all correctly, nobody else wants to speak, correct? Okay. Parties with the standing have an opportunity to offer rebuttal or closing argument. As a reminder, please focus your response on legal arguments and new or clarifying evidence. Please avoid the mere repetition of the evidence we already heard. We'll begin with the applicant, then I'll call any other parties withstanding.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate the patience of this council. I do want to point out, during that witness testimony, I did not make any objections. I didn't want to try to turn the record into an absolute mess, but I do want to remind the board that, remind the council that any comment that was purporting to offer expert testimony, stuff about stormwater, things about traffic, that's the kind of testimony that has to be given by an expert. If any of that testimony raise questions in your mind and you want to hear from Mr. Kennard, I am happy to call him back up here and he can answer those questions. But I would say that North Carolina law says that unless that person is an expert, that you have to give that testimony the weight it deserves, and if it requires expert testimony, that's no way. So the idea of stormwater.
Hey, guys, please.
Just while we're talking about the stormwater, keep in mind, this developer has offered and is planning now, this can be a condition of this application, to detain the 10-year storm. So not the 1-year storm that's required by the ordinance, the 10-year storm. I don't think you're going to get that from any as-of-right development that came in. They put in the same amount of blacktop, they'd be detaining the 1-year storm, and instead of that stormwater situation getting better, it's going to get worse. There's a lot of undetained water that's going through that will get captured by that system and improved. Let's see. I'm jumping around because I'm trying to remember what I was objecting to. Let's see. Okay, the issue about the ABC store. So it's important that we have, I think as someone in the community said it better than I could, a diverse mix of people in our community. If we try to make sure that we are just segregating affordable houses to places that aren't close to stores, aren't close to, the goods that people need to enjoy their daily lives, maybe you're keeping away from an ABC store, but you're also keeping them away from the community. It's not healthy. And I don't think we can jump to the conclusion that this is not going to be a development of hardworking folks. If you've heard from the developer, they're going to have their own processes in place to make sure their people meet the qualifications. If they don't meet their qualifications, they're going to lose their tax credits. They're also, this is a market, it's not a market development, but this is a business that is engaged in a for-profit enterprise. If you had a market rate company come, they wouldn't be doing any of that stuff. You wouldn't have the cameras, not necessarily. You wouldn't have the safeguards that they are putting in place, the background checks that they are doing for their community members. I'm sorry, bear with me. Let me look at my notes.
No, it's okay. Do y'all want to maybe speak to what the qualifications are for a resident, maybe?
Yeah, come on in.
So I can speak to some of the qualifications. We use a property management company that specializes in this, so they know all the details better than I do. But you have to have income qualifications, so you have to show that you meet the income requirements. You have to pass a background check. And the details of that, part of that is governed by North Carolina Housing Finance Agency that puts in place best measures for how to manage these properties and who can qualify to live there. And so we follow all the North Carolina Housing Finance Agency guidelines and do the criminal background checks and income qualifications for every resident. And of course, if there is, there's a lease in place that guides or has legal restrictions on what people are and are not able to do if they do qualify to live there. And part of the management company's job is to enforce that lease. So if activity is found to occur that doesn't meet that lease or is against the lease agreement, then those leases can and will be terminated.
Thank you. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No, that's great. Nick, can I ask you one more question, if you don't mind coming back up? I believe you told the board a little about your employment background. Can you tell them about your educational background?
Sure. I have a bachelor's degree in political science. I have a master's degree in public administration and a master's degree in international studies. I've been working in the affordable housing industry for well over a decade now, much of that in the public sector. I worked for local governments, helping them create affordable housing programs and helping local governments understand what they can do to create diverse housing options. What I found in that process is the tax credit program is the most productive way. And a lot of local governments, and I think the town of Fletcher included, understands the need that exists in the community for affordable housing and housing options. And a lot of what I did in my career was to help local governments learn about what they can do to incentivize this. And tonight we're not asking for any incentives. We're just asking for zoning. But that's, and I've been a private for-profit developer for about 2.5 years now.
Thank you for that.
I just wanted to get that on the record. Unless there are any questions, I think that about wraps it up for us. I have spent a lot of years doing local government advocacy work, local government law. I was a county staff attorney in Buncombe County for about 7 or 8 years doing, advising boards just like this. I want to say for you all to hear it, I want to say for the people in this room to hear it, it's a tough thing to do, to look at those standards and say, even though people have concerns, we have a need in our community for this affordable housing, and we have a duty when someone meets all those standards to approve a project. It's a difficult thing to do. And you know, I hope that the folks aren't holding it against me for being up here and advocating against it or for it, but I get that they might be. We're planning staff for presenting this project, or this council for having to make the vote. But we really appreciate your time. I do think this is an important project for Fletcher. Any questions that the council has, we are happy to answer.
Do we have any questions?
Well, for the record, we did have an expert, and he spent half of his time actually telling you his qualifications. He did not have a person who sat there and said, what are your qualifications, and
Okay.
put that to an expert.
I appreciate the comments. We're going to continue on with the hearing. Thank you, though.
Thank you, Your Honor.
All right, hearing there's no more questions or comments for any parties. Does any council member have personal knowledge of additional facts relevant to the case that should be entered into the record? Okay, hearing no additional questions or presentation of relevant facts, the council will now begin deliberation. The evidentiary hearing remains open so that the council may ask clarifying questions if needed. As a reminder, this council is tasked with deciding if, based on evidence presented, this proposal meets the applicable standards. This decision cannot be based on the personal preference of council members, rather it is based on standards and evidence. Council members are encouraged to reference the applicable standards and specific evidence in their deliberation. For this particular case, the council is asked to decide, does the record include competent, relevant, and substantial evidence that the development is consistent with Article 15.10 and that all 9 required criteria for this issuance of a special use permit? Now, is there a motion to approve? Is there a motion to approve with conditions, or deny the request? And so we have a couple of motions that are suggested in front of you, council. there's a approval for the rezoning, for approval or denial, and then, which we would do first, and then on the back, there's a special use permit motion, which if we deny it, we don't need to do the second motion, correct? Okay. So if there's any deliberation, we can do that now. If not, we can move forward to a vote. Any deliberation? Nope. Okay, well then we just need a motion for approval or denial for the rezoning. If anybody's ready to make a motion.
I see Jim's got it in hand.
Jim, are you gonna make a motion? So, one of our council members, we need approval or denial.
So I want to first say I don't take this lightly for either party. I realize there's a need, but I also realize there's a concern. And I have concerns as well that still haven't been solely answered by this. So I'm going to move to make the motion to deny, and I'll read this.
And please, but no applause,
No
y'all.
applause, please. I move the town council deny an ordinance amending the official zoning map of the town of Fletcher, changing the zoning designation of the subject property from C2 Interstate Business District to NBD, Neighborhood Business District, finding the petition is found to be inconsistent with the town of Fletcher's land use based on the information from the staff analysis in the public hearing, and because the petition proposes higher density multifamily residential outside of the town core. We do not find the petition to be reasonable and in the public interest based on the information from the staff analysis, public hearing, and because, number one, the town has already experienced an increase in higher density apartment-style development. The town's intent is to direct the higher density residential development toward the core of town. The proposed development would remove a commercially zoned property and replace it with a residential use, further reducing the amount of commercially zoned land available along the Underwood Road corridor. And number three, the proposed development has a higher residential density than the surrounding parcels.
Okay, we have a motion for denial. Is there a second?
I second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for denial. Is there any discussion from council? Hearing none, all those in favor of denial say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Okay, the motion carries. And then we will not do the suggested use permit motion as it is now moot. Staff will draft and I will sign a final written decision to reflect the vote and reasoning for the decision. That written decision will be provided to the applicant and other parties with a right to such notice. Parties have 30 days to appeal the decision. And thank you everyone for attending this public hearing. And if you wish to stay till the end of our council meeting, which is coming up, you may do so. If not, this will be a good time to make your exit. Have a good evening. It's on, evening. If you want to watch it, go to the town website and there's a link, you'll be able to rewatch this. It's on YouTube. Evening.
Gene, you don't want to stay for manager comments?
You don't want to hear the manager's comment?
I got Kim, I got Mike, thank you.
Look at him.
All righty. Moving into your comments, Mark.
All right, that's a tough act to follow.
Yeah.
I tell ya. So budget
Thank you,
update.
Tyler.
So
Thank you,
from,
Tyler.
Thanks, Tyler.
Oh, just shutting the door. Come on back in, sorry. Yeah, without
Appreciate all your work.
leaving us. Yeah, thank you.
Tyler, appreciate all your work on all that.
Yeah, thanks, Tyler. Just as far as an update from last week, of course, you heard me present the recommended budget to you at our Thursday meeting. No changes from that budget. We'll advertise it as a next step. That public notice will go out on May the 27th. I will also be working on a budget message, just a narrative overview, and then we'll have the details on expenses and revenues. The only change, and I usually update it slightly, is we'll get one more value estimate, or one last one from the assessor's office. That'll come out about the end of this week, May 15th. It's about the middle of the month they've been doing them, so that should be our last estimate. The figures will be tweaked very slightly. Usually it goes up a little bit, could fall, so I'll update that as appropriate as it impacts the payment to fire services, CIP, and then the rest of the operating budget as it impacts that for the total values. But there'll be one tweak, so a budget message, advertise it May 27th, and then we'll hold our public hearing in June at the regular meeting. So we've updated workers' comp figures in there, and we did get our renewal for our property and liability, and I don't think it's going to impact that in terms of having to do more expense budgeted, but Heather's going to reconcile that and we'll know. So those are the final adjustments, and kind of next steps are just, the public hearing in June 8th. The next thing, unless there's any questions about the budget at this point, street resurfacing. I mentioned last week on our 2 roads that we've got set up for Powell Bill resurfacing, Meadow Pathway Court and Meadow Walk Court. I was out there Friday at one point, and they had got the cul-de-sac street, which I believe is Meadow Walk Court, done. And then Meadow Pathway Court was about halfway, so it may be all the blacktop down by now in there. So it's essentially done. They'll do some adjustments on there. We'll have a punch list and walk through, and if there's anything that needs to be touched up. But before I speak any further on that, we'll have McGill, look at that, and of course, Public Works. But I anticipate that should be completely done within this week. And so far it looked, I thought, good out there. The next thing, I mentioned the mural last week about the interest from Karen Eve Bain with Steep. And of course, they've done murals in other parts of Henderson County. You had some examples. So again, just looking for any suggestions or locations. Their plan is to submit a grant to the Community Foundation of Henderson County, and they have a special Fletcher Fund where they can do grants for various things on money that's dedicated for the town for those types of projects, or community-based projects, rather. So, any suggestions, I'll be asking staff for thoughts on it. And of course, I mentioned the one location, which I think is a good one. It depends on the landowner and what would go up there, but the Feed and Seed building. And, okay, Keith's gonna, you mentioned something.
I like Joe, as oddly as it sounds, I like Joe's idea that was in here speaking to us at the last meeting with his rope.
Yeah.
He mentioned the wall in front of Foam and Fabrics along 25.
Oh, yeah, okay.
To keep some kind of historical from then till now. If something could be designed to, it's a longer section where it could be from then till,
Yeah, I agree with
Yeah,
you. Keeping it
just an
Fletcher,
idea.
yeah, keeping it Fletcher, nothing, just everything that happens in Fletcher and everything keeps, like that coffee cup mug we had at one time.
Yeah, yeah,
That was
yeah.
very pretty mug right there.
Yeah.
Now, that's
I'm okay
gonna
with
be
either
something-
location.
That's gonna
And it could be
something
more
we
than
have to
one.
approve, though.
Yeah, it can be.
Oh, yeah, if we could be more than one, then both locations.
Even in the town center area.
Is
we can-
there a ordinance on, I know that's a historic building.
Yeah.
Can you paint on a historic building like that?
So they have a couple ways they can do it. The painting is more costly and more time intensive. They also have, it's a vinyl coating where they do the art onto a vinyl, and then that way.
How long
Do they
it
glue
lasts?
that it lasts, like,
Do they
she
glue it
said
on?
like 20 years, if I remember right.
If it fade or anything, it looks.
20 years is long, yeah.
Well, the paint will fade too, so.
Would that be something, that's a question I'd ask, is that something then 20 years from now, they can go back and retouch up and
Yeah, I'd have to ask them, yeah.
I'd assume probably.
I would think
Yeah.
so.
I would think you could, or you do a new one, and it's, less intensive as far as, you'd have to scratch off the other, sand down the other mural and then redo it, or what have you, but,
I'd love to see some samples what that looks like with the.
yeah, I didn't even know they could do something like that. So that's another option, that's not as much wear and tear on the building, I think, because it's got that coating that attaches to the building.
That's obviously something we would approve, though. We're not just giving them full, free motion to do anything to get your day.
Yeah, and that's always a sensitive thing too, because, beauty's in the eye of the beholder.
Yeah, exactly, I mean.
And art is, you might love something and Jim hates it, and that's just, hopefully it's not that big of a difference, but, so the design, I'm thinking they would work with the town, and that's something we can ask more questions to.
Yeah, 'cause I definitely
On
would
the
have to-
aesthetic, and
There's gotta be
what's the
some-
theme, and, the
Yes.
art. And there still may be some things that you like more than others, but as long as you're not like fundamentally opposed, or there's something controversial about it that, might really turn some folks off. But, those are also some important but good question, yeah. So anyways, we're planning for her to come and speak to you at the June meeting. So that'd be a good opportunity to ask some more of these questions too. So, but I thought it was great they're interested, and I think it's a good opportunity to put some nice mural art up here in our town. The last thing I was going to talk to you about, I mentioned last week, obviously, we're communicating with our legislators and trying to make sure Fletcher's story is told, and our concerns, and also a little more dialogue, hopefully, on the whys on the property tax legislation that's being considered. Some bills have been introduced already, and I know I mentioned that two bills, one on the Senate side and then also one on the House side. The one on the Senate side is Senate Bill 889, and it's a property tax reappraisal moratorium, so it's essentially putting a moratorium on reval. So I'm not clear how that would affect Henderson County's coming, because they're going to start working on it this coming fiscal year. It wouldn't take effect till, I believe, the following one, but a reval year is coming up. So that's one. And quite frankly, I don't know what you all hear, I'd be curious. I've been working in local government a long time in Fletcher, most of my career now, 20 years. Most of the comments we hear from people, or the concerns or worry as far as property taxes go in general, that's probably because y'all haven't raised taxes much here. They've either been no rate increases, or they've been very small ones. Or if they're small ones, it's part of our fire tax that goes to our fire services. So that might be why you don't hear much about it. But it's reval, So when you have these big jumps, and generally they've been fairly significant because we're a high-growth locale here, and some of it's been higher more in Fletcher than any other part of Henderson County because we're a high-growth area. So, but that's been a little bit more, and, you know, I don't know what the approach is going to be, the details, how do you control that, or what kind of controls do you put in place? Do you delay it? Do you put caps on it? They do it every 4 years, as you know, in Henderson County. By law, you can't do it any less frequently than 8 years. I worked in a county before I came out here that did it every 8 years. And maybe that's not often enough, but I also came from a place that had a really high tax rate because they didn't have a strong tax base or as broad of a tax base, meaning lots of industry like we have. So that's on the Senate bill side. On the House bill side, and this is what we've been hearing a lot more about, and I don't know if there's a provision in the Senate bill, I'd have to look, but, I mean, they're looking to do a constitutional amendment and a directive then to the General Assembly to put these controls in on the property tax. And if you read the language on it, you know, how many people are going to say no to this but don't know the real impacts of what's going to happen to their services where they live. And some people may not be concerned about that, but, you know, it probably won't be an immediate, but the long-term impact is, and I don't underuse this word, profound of what it can do to the quality of services that people enjoy. But, you know, here's in this current version of House Bill 1089, it's a constitutional amendment, and the language they want to put on there, are you for or against a constitutional amendment requiring limits on property tax increases by local governments? Who's going to say no to that? So without, I don't know how much more information out there on the impacts. So, you know, not to be adversarial with our legislators, but we also need to have, you know, talk about transparency. What are the impacts on this? Or if you put something like that in place.
Sales tax, yeah. then you
Yeah,
can look-
and of course, yeah, or other alternatives, because this is the only source of revenue that you control, and it's your largest. It's 53% for Fletcher of your budget. And this isn't just, I know there's been a lot of talk about public safety, and, you know, you don't want to mess with public safety services, police and fire, but, I mean, this is impacting, you know, it helps support all our solid waste services and public works, parks and rec, planning and zoning. So and our residents value the services here. So, anyways, that's just, I know we all been trying to communicate, and I've been reaching out. You saw some of the communication, and appreciate you all taking efforts to talk to me a little bit about that. And, you know, our legislators, they're going to want to hear from you, and they should. I drafted a letter. If you want to hold off on sending something, take a look, please take a look at it. I don't know if it's something you want to talk about tonight and make a decision on, or we hold off, or I don't know. But I tried to put some things in there in a collaborative approach to, you know, if you want to make changes, what are some things we can work on? We can give meaningful feedback based on what y'all hear from residents about this, at least in Fletcher. So
I will say, I'm willing to sign the letter, have it sent off if y'all want it, but my suggestion was going to be to hold off just because we've already sent the resolution to them, and it was not greeted with very warm appetite there.
Well, I don't want it to become an us against them.
Yeah. So
I
I
would
worry
like some
about that.
open dialogue,
Yeah.
some positive dialogue, instead of just the response we got back. I just thought that was very inappropriate.
Yeah, that wasn't very
I
meaningful.
wasn't happy with that at all.
And what I will say, I haven't talked with Tim, but I did share some texts with Jennifer today, and she said it was going to go to committee tomorrow, so she said she would be tied up all day, won't have a chance to speak, but she did welcome the opportunity for she and I to speak on Wednesday, and so if holding her to that, we will speak on Wednesday, and so if there's any specific things that are outside the talking points and the things that we've already discussed as a council that y'all want me to raise, happy to do that if y'all let me know, but as it stands, I should be talking with her on Wednesday, fingers crossed.
And this is, I mean, to be fair to Fletcher and every other local government out there, this is, and I don't know what the experience is in other places. Maybe there's been more dialogue back and forth with their legislators and local government officials, but this is one where you all need to be a partner in this, or at least be getting some feedback,
Yeah.
and not kind of one-sided on it. So not that it's all been one, but that's a valid, big concern to bring up. So, and the league is communicating with our legislators, and they lobby on our behalf for bills for and against different bills. So, anyways, think about it on the letter. If you, and again, yeah, we don't want to be adversarial, but you also need to communicate strong concerns that you have and the impact that it has, and our residents need to know this too.
All righty, any questions, comments from Mark? Any other business from council?
Nope.
All right, motion to adjourn?
Motion.
A motion to adjourn, second?
I'll second.
Please, y'all, we've been here for a while. Motion is second, any discussion? Hearing all those in favor of adjourn, say aye. Aye. Those opposed? We are adjourned.